How do you deal with that as a family?
Well, we don't, in many respects, need to deal with it. Not least of all because...
Every royal family has its enforcer, the one who values rules above reputation. For the Windsors, that role has always belonged to Princess Anne. While her brothers courted headlines and her late sister-in-law Diana captured hearts, Anne chose another path: duty, discipline, and silence. It is this silence, used like a blade, that has defined her legacy as the monarchy's toughest defender. Over 5 decades, she has completed more engagements than any other royal, yet rarely makes front pages. To Anne, that is the point: service before self. But when others forget that rule, whether by chasing fame, breaking protocol, or putting personal drama above the crown, her patience vanishes. Anne's response is not a scandalous quote or a leaked story. It is the brutal freeze of being cut out, ignored, erased in plain sight. In this video, we'll uncover the 7 figures: princes, princesses, a queen, and even a prime minister's wife, who felt that unforgiving chill. These are the top 7 royal family members Princess Anne hated the most. When Prince Harry returned to Windsor for his grandfather's funeral in April 2021, all eyes expected reconciliation. The cameras lingered on his brief exchanges with William, searching for signs of thaw. Prince Philip's coffin was carried on a custom Land Rover Defender TD5130 that he had personally helped design over years. Not an electric vehicle, as some claimed, but a diesel model adapted to his exact wishes. But the sharper story was happening a few steps away. Princess Anne, stoic, unsmiling, immovable, refused to acknowledge her nephew. There was no small talk, no nod, not even the courtesy of eye contact. For royal watchers, it was more than family tension. It was Anne's verdict delivered in silence. The wound was fresh. Just weeks earlier, Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey had aired to more than 17 million viewers in the United States, detonating accusations of racism and cruelty inside the palace. For Anne, a woman who had built her career on never trading private matters for public attention, the spectacle was unforgivable. She had endured decades of tabloid intrusions without once bartering her loyalty for sympathy. To see her nephew dismantle the family's code of silence on global television was a line she would never accept being crossed. Her response was not dramatic confrontation. It was exclusion. Those who know Anne's style understand the weight of that choice. She has perfected the art of cutting people out without ever raising her voice. And Harry, once her adventurous young nephew, now felt the full measure of that cold shoulder. 2 years later, when Harry released his memoir, Spare, the divide only deepened. The book sold over 1.4 million copies in its first 24 hours, cementing his role as the most outspoken royal in modern history. Though Anne's name was scarcely mentioned, the intimate details about King Charles, Camilla, and William were enough. For Anne, whose loyalty has always been to the institution above individuals, such revelations were an act of betrayal that blood ties could not excuse. Her silence toward Harry carried a message to the rest of the family: betray the code, and not even lineage will shield you. To Anne, the monarchy survives not through Netflix deals or primetime interviews, but through discipline, sacrifice, and the ability to endure in silence. In her eyes, Harry had abandoned all 3. And so, at Windsor, the world saw the monarchy's hardest defender do what she does best: say nothing and let that silence speak louder than any words. Long before Meghan Markle became headline material, Princess Anne had already taken her measure. The meeting came in 2017, months before Meghan's engagement to Prince Harry was announced. Expecting a polite introduction, Meghan instead encountered Anne's trademark bluntness. This was not a warm welcome to the family. It was a cold audit of character. Anne reportedly made it clear that the monarchy was not a stage for stardom. It demanded anonymity, sacrifice, and service above self, values she had lived by across more than 20,000 public engagements. For Meghan, raised in the open culture of Hollywood and used to the visibility of red carpets, the message was jarring. She had stepped into what she thought was a new chapter of her celebrity life. Instead, Anne reminded her she was entering an institution older than her entire country. Those close to Anne say she saw warning signs immediately. Meghan, in her eyes, was not built for the rigid hierarchy and unrelenting scrutiny of royal duty. She is even said to have advised Harry directly against the marriage, fearing that Meghan's temperament and background would not survive the constraints of Windsor life. It wasn't personal dislike, it was calculation. Anne viewed the monarchy like an ancient machine, and she doubted Meghan had the patience to keep it running. By 2020, her prediction had proven devastatingly accurate, less than 2 years after the lavish wedding at St. George's Chapel, Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back from royal duties. The move, quickly dubbed Megxit, was precisely the rupture Anne had feared, the glamour of celebrity colliding with the discipline of monarchy and tradition losing ground. Then came the Oprah interview in March 2021. To Anne, the spectacle confirmed her deepest suspicions. Meghan's grievances, broadcast to millions, were not just personal complaints. They represented an erosion of the unwritten code that Anne had embodied her entire life. Never explain, never complain. For Anne, Meghan symbolized the dangerous pull of modern celebrity culture. To her, it was proof that when the palace doors are open to the language of PR, duty is the first casualty. That is why Meghan was not merely another difficult relative in Anne's story. She was the embodiment of everything Anne believed could destroy the monarchy if left unchecked. And in Anne's world, there is no greater sin. Few rivalries inside the House of Windsor were as symbolic as the unspoken clash between Princess Anne and Princess Diana. They were close in age, both central women in the Queen's family circle, yet their visions of royal life could not have been further apart. Anne, molded by the stern discipline of her parents, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, had built her reputation on sheer endurance. By the early 1980s, she had toured more than 30 countries and was already seen as the monarchy's tireless workhorse. Diana, by contrast, captivated the world not through numbers, but through emotion. A single hospital visit, where she held the hand of an AIDS patient, drew more attention than Anne's entire year of engagements. To the public, Diana was a revelation, empathetic, expressive, unafraid to show her humanity. But to Anne, those same qualities felt like a betrayal of royal tradition. In her worldview, stoicism was not coldness, but strength, the armor that allowed the monarchy to outlast centuries of scandal. Diana's openness risked turning that armor into glass. Resentment simmered quietly. While tabloids splashed Diana across front pages, Anne's commitments were often relegated to the back. Insiders recall that she bristled at the imbalance, not out of envy, but because she felt duty was being overshadowed by spectacle. The monarchy, she believed, should be built on service, not stardom. When Diana died tragically in Paris in 1997, the world erupted in grief. Public figures across Britain issued heartfelt tributes. Anne did not. She offered no public statement, no emotional performance, only silence. To many, that silence spoke louder than any condolence. It was consistent with her lifelong refusal to indulge the cult of personality that Diana embodied. This was not simply dislike. It was the collision of two philosophies: Diana's belief that the crown could modernize through compassion and visibility, and Anne's conviction that survival depended on restraint and anonymity. Diana turned the monarchy into a story of feeling. Anne believed that was the beginning of its undoing. In the end, the world adored Diana for the very qualities that Anne distrusted. And Anne's refusal to bend, even in death, cemented her reputation as the royal who would never compromise the code. The roots of Anne's froideur toward Camilla stretch back more than half a century, long before the words queen consort were attached to Camilla's name. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, London's aristocratic social circles revolved around polo fields and officers' mess halls. At the center was a cavalryman, Andrew Parker Bowles. Handsome, well-connected, and endlessly gossiped about, he was romantically linked to both Anne and a young Camilla Shand. Anne truly cared for Andrew, but marriage was out of the question. As a Roman Catholic, he was not considered a suitable husband for the Queen's daughter under the strict royal protocols of the time. What might have been a love match was quietly recognized as impossible. Andrew eventually married Camilla, and the story took a turn that would shape the Windsor saga for decades. For Anne, who values clarity and rules above all, this triangle blurred the boundary between personal desire and public duty, exactly the kind of compromise she instinctively distrusts. As Charles's relationship with Camilla grew, Anne kept her reserve. Unlike her mother, who gradually accepted Camilla into the fold, Anne remained professionally polite but emotionally distant. To her, Camilla was not just a companion for Charles. She was a reminder of broken lines, affairs, scandals, and compromises that Anne never believed the monarchy could afford. When Charles became king in 2022 and Camilla was crowned queen in 2023, the choreography of the coronation became a point of fascination. Some viewers claim to spot a telling moment. Anne, standing in her military uniform as gold stick-in-waiting, appeared stiff, offering no visible curtsy as Camilla passed. Whether intentional or not, the interpretation spread quickly online. Commentators saw in that posture not rebellion, but a refusal to perform warmth she did not feel. Anne herself never addressed it. She never needed to. Her stance, formal, unsmiling, duty-bound, spoke for her. Camilla may now carry the title of queen, but Anne's loyalty has always been to the institution, not to individuals who, in her view, entered the family through scandal. Their story is not one of shouting matches or dramatic confrontations. It is subtler and, in many ways, sharper. Camilla represents the monarchy's willingness to bend with circumstance. Anne represents its instinct to hold fast against compromise. In that tension lies the quiet hostility that has lasted decades. And so, while Camilla now wears a crown, she will never earn what Anne believes truly matters: respect through unbroken discipline. For Anne, titles can be inherited, but legitimacy must be lived every day, and Camilla's path to the throne will always carry the shadow of how it began. If Camilla embodied the monarchy's compromises with the past, Prince William represented Anne's unease about its future. To the world, William is the modern face of the crown, the dutiful son, the photogenic father, the heir who could restore stability after decades of scandal. But to Anne, who measures loyalty in labor rather than image, William's rise has not been without its shadows. Anne has always believed that respect must be earned by work, not inherited by bloodline. The numbers tell the story. In 2019, Charles logged 521 official engagements. Anne completed 506, while William managed barely over 200. For a woman who spent her life grinding through hundreds of ribbon cuttings, hospital visits, and overseas tours every year, such disparity is hard to ignore. In her eyes, the future king appeared to be pacing himself while others carried the load. This difference is not simply generational, it is philosophical. William has embraced a streamlined monarchy, one that prioritizes fewer engagements but with greater media visibility. He and Catherine focus on carefully branded causes: mental health, early childhood, environmental advocacy, delivered through curated events and polished campaigns. Anne, by contrast, treats every engagement, no matter how small, as an obligation that sustains the crown's legitimacy. For her, the monarchy is not a brand. It is a contract renewed daily with the people through service. Insiders say Anne has never confronted William directly. That is not her way. Instead, her critique lies in example. Year after year, she tops or nearly tops the list of the busiest royals, a quiet rebuke to younger generations who prefer selectivity. The message is unspoken but clear. Photographs may win headlines, but consistency wins respect. It is not that Anne dislikes William personally. On the contrary, she is known to value his steadiness compared to his brother Harry. But she sees in him the seeds of a monarchy that could drift further from the principles she regards as non-negotiable. For Anne, kingship without relentless duty risks becoming celebrity by another name. As the monarchy leans on William and Catherine to secure its future, Anne remains the cautionary figure in the background, the woman who will never stop working and who silently judges whether the next generation has the stamina to keep the institution alive. In that contrast, Anne's coldness is not cruelty, it is a warning. If William reflects Anne's doubts about the future, Charles embodies her unease with the present. The two siblings, born only 2 years apart, share the same royal upbringing, but drew opposite lessons from it. Charles absorbed their mother's gentleness and turned it into a philosophy of reform. Speak to the people, modernize the throne, and show a softer face of monarchy. Anne inherited their father's granite code: endure in silence, work until exhaustion, and never, under any circumstance, explain yourself. This divide was clear long before Charles wore the crown. For decades, he allowed his passions to spill into public life, championing organic farming, warning of climate disaster, and even penning letters to ministers. Anne recoiled from such exposure. To her, each speech was a risk, each opinion a crack in the armor. A royal voice, once politicized, could never be taken back. When Charles became king in 2022, those instincts hardened into policy. He signaled a slimmed-down monarchy, trimmed the roster of working royals, and staged carefully scripted appearances to project unity. Anne did not oppose him publicly. She never does. But her posture told its own story. While Charles orchestrated symbolism, she remained the workhorse in uniform, clocking visit after visit, embodying the idea that survival depends not on image, but on grind. Their rift is not melodrama. It is more profound than that. Charles believes adaptation buys legitimacy. Anne believes adaptation breeds decay. He leans on rhetoric and reform. She leans on silence and constancy. Both claim to defend the same crown, but their methods quietly undermine each other. At state occasions, the tension is invisible to casual eyes. Yet for those who know the Windsors, it is unmistakable. Charles searching for relevance in modern Britain, Anne guarding the invisible firewall of tradition. Two heirs of the same queen, standing shoulder to shoulder, yet walking in opposite directions. This is Anne's coldest verdict of all, not against a brother she dislikes, but against a monarch whose vision she does not trust. In her silence lies a challenge sharper than words. Can the crown survive by bending, or only by refusing to bend at all? The final entry on our list is not a prince, princess, or even a royal at all. It is Cherie Blair, wife of former Prime Minister Tony Blair, and the one outsider who learned just how cold Princess Anne's frost could be. Their clash revealed not only Anne's personality, but also the monarchy's enduring insistence that blood outranks merit. The story began in the mid-1990s, when Tony Blair rose as the fresh face of Labour politics. At a Buckingham Palace reception, Cherie, then a respected barrister and Queen's Counsel, extended what seemed an ordinary courtesy. She invited Anne to call her by her first name. "Please call me Cherie." Anne's reply was swift, cutting, and unforgettable. "I'd rather not." It was more than a quip. It was a boundary line, a reminder that informality belonged to the world outside the palace gates. Tensions did not ease. By the time of the Queen's Golden Jubilee in 2002, the relationship had curdled into open frost. In front of dignitaries, foreign leaders, and senior British officials, Anne deliberately turned away from Cherie during formal introductions, leaving the Prime Minister's wife effectively invisible in the room. For political insiders, it was one of the most calculated snubs in modern royal history. Why such hostility? Part of the answer lies in personality. Cherie, outspoken and modern, represented everything Anne resisted. Where Cherie championed merit, informality, and social mobility, Anne clung to hierarchy, ritual, and discipline. For Anne, the monarchy's survival depends on the sharp edges of protocol. To blur them is to invite erosion. Unlike her treatment of Harry, Meghan, Diana, Camilla, William, or even Charles, Anne's attitude toward Cherie showed that her standards stretch beyond family. To her, it does not matter if you are a blood relative or a political heavyweight. If you fail to respect the codes, you fail altogether. In that sense, Cherie Blair's place on this list is symbolic. She represents the institution's collision with the outside world, where titles mean less, and where Anne's brand of aristocratic frost seems most unforgiving. By the end of Tony Blair's premiership, their relationship had not thawed. Anne never softened, never offered a public smile or gesture of reconciliation. Her silence and scorn remained intact, a reminder that some barriers between royalty and politics are not merely tradition, but conviction. 7 names, 7 stories. Each one, in its own way, collided with Princess Anne's unbending code. Harry, who broke silence. Meghan, who brought Hollywood into Windsor. Diana, who made compassion the language of royalty. Camilla, whose path to the throne was paved with scandal. William, the heir whose workload never matched Anne's iron pace. Charles, the king who speaks where she believes silence should reign. And Cherie Blair, the outsider who mistook familiarity for acceptance. What unites these stories is not gossip or rivalry, but philosophy. Anne has spent a lifetime proving that monarchy survives not by charm, not by headlines, not by compromise, but by duty carried out day after day without applause. To those who stray from that creed, her response is always the same. She cuts them off, quietly but completely. In an age where every royal drama can be streamed, tweeted, or dissected on talk shows, Anne remains the last guardian of an older code. Never explain, never complain. Whether you admire her discipline or see it as coldness, one truth is undeniable. Her silence speaks louder than any interview, and her judgment lingers longer than any tabloid headline. So the question is left for you. In the battle between adaptation and tradition, between visibility and stoicism, who truly protects the crown? The heirs who modernize, or the sister who refuses to bend?